Hey YouTube, it's Monica, and today I'm going to talk about how you can begin to develop a personalized education plan for your children. So the basic gist is that you need to figure out what you want your kids to learn by the time they're 16, 17, 18 years old, whenever you think you might be done with them. And then you need to work backwards depending on how old they are, how many years you have to accomplish these main goals. And then you need to make a yearly plan, and from there a weekly plan. And when you're thinking about everything that you want your kids to do and to learn and to accomplish, you're going to think of three things. There are just three basic components to an education. The first component is skill sets. And these are skills that you're going to need to learn. You're not going to forget these things easily because you use them a lot and you do them over and over. For example, once you learn how to write words, you're not going to forget. So handwriting would be a skill set. Reading would be a skill set. There's a lot of debate about how old you should be, your kids could be when you teach them to read. And I would say that earlier is better, because then they will get confident because they will be good at reading, and then they will like to read. There is another school of thought that says you should wait until they come to it on their own, which could be like 11 years old, and I don't think that's a great idea, but to each his own. But yeah, I feel that because it's a skill set, you will not forget it, and when you develop competence early on, you'll get good at it, and we like things we're good at. So reading, writing is a skill set. Reading and writing in cursive is a skill set. And I'm going to differentiate that from knowledge sets. Another important thing that is a skill set is math, certainly basic math. Addition, subtraction, fractions, multiplication, division, percentages. That is a skill set that you will use over and over throughout real life. Now, I do sometimes hear people say, what do I need to learn math for? Everyone has a calculator in their pocket. Well, I don't want to be tied to my phone. I want to be able to look at a sign and say, yep, that's what that's going to cost, because I know what 25% off is going to work out to be. It's very easy to figure out in your head. It's easy to teach your kids. I want my kids to have that freedom and confidence. And not only when you're going to the stores, but when you're talking about loans for houses, loans for cars, whenever you're investing, you can get investors to give you money, and then you're going to talk about giving them a certain percentage in return. If you're getting loans for, say, a house, it's going to be over a certain time frame, it's going to amortize a certain way. This is all having to do with percentages, and you need to understand it well, and you're not going to just get that from pulling out your phone. So again, there's three things. Skill sets, let's tell you the other two. There's knowledge sets, and then the last category I would say would be logic / problem solving. Okay, so let's talk about the logic and problem solving category. So again, you're going to decide all the things you want your kids to learn by the time you're done with them. Some of the things are going to go under the skill sets category. Some of the things I mentioned might be important to you. Other things are going to go under logic and problem solving. This is extremely important. I don't know many people who are anti-logic and problem solving. Now, their approach to teaching logic might be different from mine, but thinking clearly and logically, I think, is valued by pretty much everyone. I don't think you're going to have many people that want their kids to be illogical, to not think clearly, and to not be able to solve problems. So you might put stuff into that category. For me, we are literally reading a book that is on informal logic right now. We have read a couple of age-appropriate books before this point. I'm talking about with my 11-year-old. So that's what we're doing, and I consider writing part of this category. Writing, and I don't mean creative writing, but I mean all other forms of writing, whether it is for writing a letter to somebody, or you might be writing a letter to the governor about how you feel about a certain law, and you need to be clear and you need to be convincing. That's where logic comes in. That's where thinking clearly comes in, and being able to express your thoughts clearly, either verbally or in written form. So to me, this is one of the most important parts of education. If you didn't, if your kid learned to read when they were 11 and they caught up and they still were a pretty good reader and had a pretty good vocabulary, maybe they never learned formal grammar, which is important to me, but maybe they didn't. But at least they could think clearly, logically, and express their thoughts to other people in a way that is understandable and, dare I say, convincing. One of the most important things. So again, when you are putting things in these three categories, it is going to help clarify what you think is important. And when you want to have an understanding and a clear idea of what is important, then when we talk about a week-to-week and a day-to-day basis, say you're short on time, or maybe you have company, you only have 1.5 days this week to get some work done, you will be able to set better priorities. And your priorities over time will change. For example, one skill set could be painting, and that might be pretty low on your list, right? But maybe you've discovered, hey, my kid's kind of anxious, and I've really noticed that after my kid does some painting, it really helps her. She is so much calmer and at peace and happier. So painting might just go up on the list of priorities. So on a yearly basis, at least, you're going to want to go over this information. You're going to want to write it down and go over it and reevaluate what you think is important. So there we have it. We've gone over 2 categories: skill sets. There's a lot of important things that go under that category. Logic and problem solving, not so many things, but the things that go there are extremely important. And then we come to the most controversial at all, and that is knowledge sets. This is where you see the pushback. This is what unschoolers hate. And I think that there is truth to this. Not just unschoolers, this is what unschoolers hate. This is what, this is what a lot of people hate. When you have anyone that's sort of pushing back against traditional education, this is what they're actually pushing back against. They're not pushing back against some sort of training and logic or just clear thinking. They're not pushing back against learning some skills that they'll need in real life. They're really pushing back against memorizing random bits of information. So I'm going to say something that might strike you as funny, and maybe it won't, maybe it'll resonate with you. You spend a bunch of time teaching your kids the planets. How about the planets? The names of all the planets, how many planets there are, and some basic facts about each of the planets. And they know it. You review that information. And then 6-9 months later, you ask them a question about it. It's like it never happens. It's like it never happens. And some of you are saying, wait a minute, no, my kid remembers. Well, I'm going to point out the difference between these two families and these two kids here. The one kid that didn't remember couldn't care less. They didn't want to do it to begin with, and they're certainly not interested now, and they just forgot it. It went in one ear, it stayed for a little bit, and then it went out the other. The second kid likes planets, likes space, is interested, and so that information was remembered. This is where you get the philosophies of child-led learning, because we're talking about knowledge sets. I very much agree, for the most part, that when we're talking about knowledge sets, we should largely have our children lead. I do think as adults who have had experience in the world and have some wisdom, we have a little something intelligent to say about maybe a couple of things that they should learn. But when you do it child-led and you go to the library every week or every 2 weeks and you say, hey, let's go to this section, the science section, and let's get some books. I want to just pick something you're interested in, and you try to read them. You get in maybe a little biology section. You pick something they're interested in. Maybe you pick some books, and you keep plugging away. Eventually, you'll find some that they think are interesting, and then we'll learn so much more like this. I was just reading. I was on social media, and somebody had talked about how their 5-year-old, for the program they were in, they had to do science and social studies, and I thought, I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying it should be more child-led. I don't know that it should be a curriculum, because you're going to spend money and you're going to spend time, and it's going to go in one ear, out the other, unless the child is interested, or unless you're very good at getting that child excited about the information. And if you're not good at it, they would better spend their time playing in the sand, or riding a bike, or riding a scooter, or playing with a friend, or coloring a picture, or any number of things. Because what's the point? Now, with my older child, I will have him learn about various historical topics. And a lot of times I will say, you're going to learn about this today. And he may not be interested, and I'm not sure if he'll remember it, but you know what he is learning? He has to write a paper. So that writing goes back into the logic category too. He's learning how to take in information and to write a paper about it and have it come across in an intelligent and understandable way. So he's learning more than one thing. But if we're talking about little kids aren't writing papers. Honestly, it's just themed playtime. But there are important knowledge sets. I would argue that maybe the organs of the body and some learning about the parts of the body, learning their names, learning what they're for, are important because they're relevant. We will need this information our whole lives, and I would hope that you would repeat it several times throughout their education. Another important knowledge set would be grammar, in my opinion. A lot of people disagree. They say, well, your kids, they're not going to need to, know what an adjective is when they grow up. No one's going to quiz them on it. No, but what will happen if your kid is really bad with their grammar? They will make appalling grammar mistakes. And people who are better educated will notice those mistakes, and then they will dismiss the ideas and opinions of your child as an adult. And it doesn't take that much effort to teach basic grammar, sentence structure, basic parts of speech. I'm not talking about crazy involved grammar lessons, but basic grammar is not that complicated, and I think it's an important knowledge set. So there you have it. You have skill sets, knowledge sets, and then logic/problem solving information. So decide what you want your kids to learn by the time you're done teaching them. Put it into those categories, and stuff in the knowledge set category, really evaluate whether it's mission critical. And then try to kind of, in that category, be a little more child-led. Because just know, if you're not going to make it super interesting and you're not going to repeat that information, it's going to get forgotten and everyone's time is wasted. So now that you have clarity on what you want to do, what type of learning it is, you can make a long-term plan, and you can use that long-term plan to make a yearly plan, and you can use that yearly plan to inform what you will do this week to reach those yearly goals. And like I said before, reevaluate it every year because things will change. But clarity is always a good thing, and you won't ever get to a point of clarity unless you spend some time thinking about these things. That's all I have for now. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any feedback or any questions, I would love to hear that. If you like this video, please click thumbs up. And if you want to hear more videos like this, please subscribe, and please click the little bell that shows up next to the subscribe button. And in the meantime, happy homeschooling and have a great day.